I'm not the kind of guy who checks his wife's phone. Never have been. I've always believed that if you go looking for something, you'll probably find it, even if it's nothing. So I stayed in my lane, kept my head down, did my job, supported her startup the whole way up, rooted for her even when her business was bleeding money in year 2. But I always figured we were in this together. I didn't think I needed to double-check what she said. Jenna runs a small but loud software firm. They specialize in boutique platforms for niche clients, luxury real estate apps, gallery commerce, fitness influencers with their own video ecosystems. Nothing revolutionary, but sleek, efficient, and just on the edge of trendy. She was proud of it, and I was proud of her. So when she told me she'd be going to a Women in STEM leadership retreat up in the Rockies, I didn't ask questions. She's been invited to these things before. Panels, podcasts, co-working weekends with other founders. Half the time, it's half networking, half champagne and bathrobes. Whatever. She earned it. She packed like it was no big deal. Said it would be low-key. Cabin vibes. Yoga. Campfire-style mentoring and workshops. I helped her load the car. Gave her a kiss. Told her to unplug and have a good time. She came back 3 days later looking relaxed. Like glowing. That fresh air kind of look. Maybe it was the mountain air. Maybe it was the fact she hadn't looked at a single Slack message for 72 hours. I didn't think much of it. I hugged her. She smelled like wood smoke and cedar shampoo. But 2 days later, I was tossing some laundry into the wash. Yeah, I do my own laundry, don't act so shocked, and there it was. A dark blue hoodie rolled up in her weekend duffel. I almost missed it. It was clean, folded weird, like someone had shoved it in there quickly. No tag. No scent I recognized. Just a simple startup logo across the chest, Graphline. All lowercase. That name stuck out, because I knew every company she worked with. And Graphline wasn't one of them. I asked her casually, like I wasn't already suspicious. Hey, where's this hoodie from? She barely looked up from her laptop. Oh, I think someone left it at the retreat. Probably one of the girls. You can toss it, or keep it. It's comfy. Something in her tone didn't match. Not even a blink. No curiosity. No suggestion of returning it. Just toss it. Weird. That night, when she went to bed early with a headache, I stayed up and Googled Graphline. It was a mid-stage crypto-adjacent tech startup out of Austin. Seed funded 3 times. Pitch deck heavy. Nothing revolutionary, but definitely real. Their logo matched the one on the hoodie. And their current CTO? David Carr. That name stopped me cold. David was her ex. The one from the Prius phase she never liked to talk about. The one she claimed she blocked on everything. The one who burned her, as she put it. A startup junkie with more pitch decks than morals. Last I heard, he'd moved to the Bay and was bleeding investor money on vaporware. So what the hell was his startup's hoodie doing in my laundry? I opened her laptop. Thought about it. Closed it. Not worth it. But her email? I could spoof it. I work IT. That's what I do. A little back-end trickery, a fake SMTP test, and a forwarded confirmation later, and I had it. The retreat wasn't some random nature getaway. It was a joint panel event, co-led by Graphline. And right there on the Saturday schedule, Building with Purpose, Platform Ethics in Emerging Tech. Speakers, Jenna Locke, founder, Echo Core, plus David Carr, CTO, Graphline. They hadn't just bumped into each other. They co-hosted. I scrolled through the schedule, now burning. Friday night had networking fire pit, founders only. Saturday had a sunrise strategy hike. Sunday morning? Co-design sprints, cabin labs, evening pair projects. Pair projects. Pair. I shut the laptop. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I told her I'd be working a weekend conference out of town in 2 weeks. She said cool, no problem. I booked a cabin near the next tech panel event listed on her calendar, something called Summit Stream. I knew she'd be going, and I knew he would be there too. The startup's Instagram made it obvious. I set up my plan, booked the same venue, different name, and I started writing code. Not for revenge. Not yet. Just to track version control. There's something methodical about writing code when you're pissed off. You're not just building something. You're stacking every piece of logic like evidence. You're solving a problem the same way you'd build a case. Line by line. Dependency by dependency. No fluff. No filler. Just precision. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. While Jenna went to her office every day like nothing had changed, I spent my nights preparing the framework for the presentation I'd give. Not to investors or devs, but to her. Or rather, to the people she wanted to impress. Her audience. The ones who clapped when she talked about female-led innovation and the future of ethical platforms. I knew the venue she was going to. I knew the kind of people who showed up. All I had to do was show them what they weren't supposed to see. I installed a tiny executable on her laptop, something light, undetectable, designed to track Git commits and any syncs made during her next retreat. It wasn't full surveillance. That would have been overkill. I just needed timestamps and file names. That would tell the story. The beauty of Git is that it timestamps everything. Every change, every commit, every push to the cloud. Even if you try to rewrite history with a rebase or squash, the logs remain, unless you're deliberately erasing them. But I knew Jenna. She wasn't a cleaner. She moved fast, sloppy when she got excited. She'd never think to scrub a trail. The code tracked 3 variables. Time of each commit. What IP address it came from. What login was active during that session. Simple, non-invasive, but revealing. The day before her next retreat, I helped her pack again. She said it was just another Founder Forward summit. Something small, intimate. I asked if it would be the same group. She said maybe. I asked if David would be there. She didn't even flinch. He might be on a panel or something. I'll steer clear. I nodded. She left Friday morning. I arrived 2 hours later. Same resort. Different cabin, closer to the back of the property. I signed in under a name that wouldn't raise eyebrows. Used my work card. Wore a gray fleece and carried a camera bag, just in case I needed a cover story. I didn't see her that first day, but I didn't need to. My server started lighting up just after 9 p.m. Her account, Echo J, started syncing commits to a folder called Sandbox UI. The IP matched the resort's private Wi-Fi, and the first commit was titled UI Build with D Test Logic. D. She used to call him that. For the next 3 hours, I watched them build. Not literally, but through the digital trail. Back and forth commits, merge conflicts, midnight pushes. Nothing about it screamed professional boundary. You don't write code at 2:42 a.m. unless something more intimate is happening. And when the final push came in at 3:17 a.m., it was titled simply, Final Integration Complete, Smiley Face. Smiley face. She never used emojis in work. The next morning, they gave a joint talk in the main hall. I stood in the back. No one knew who I was. I watched her laugh at his jokes. Watched her touch his shoulder. She didn't wear her wedding ring. The rest of the day, I documented everything. Snapshots of the session names. Copies of their co-authored material. I even found their cabin. She was staying in a private suite, not the shared co-living lodge. Saturday night, they hosted a demo and wine night. The whole lodge attended. I waited. Sunday morning was the closing keynote. That's when I'd make my move. That night, I barely slept. Not from nerves. I just didn't want to miss the moment. I stayed up and polished the slide deck. It was titled, Version Control, a Live Case Study in Accountability. Every slide was timestamped. Every commit shown in order. Every username marked. Their work. Their sandbox. Their private repo. All mirrored to my own Git dashboard. And then came the last slide. A zoom in on the final commit. Final integration complete, smiley face. Time, 3:17 a.m. Author, Echo J. Co-authored, Car. I made sure the screenshot showed the IP, the GPS location, the file tree, the sleep logs, and next to it, a note. Integration confirmed. Congratulations. That was the part where the audience would either get it or pretend not to. The presentation wasn't just about code. It was about what people hide in plain sight. At 9:03 a.m. the next day, I walked into the main hall 15 minutes before her keynote. The AV guy was finishing setup. I told him I was helping with the Echo Core keynote. He didn't even blink. Just handed me the HDMI cord and went to check lighting. I uploaded the file, tested the clicker, and waited. Jenna walked in wearing a gray blazer and black jeans. Her hair curled. She scanned the room. She didn't see me. David came in 5 minutes later. They stood side by side, chatting. At exactly 9:30 a.m., the lights dimmed. The first slide lit up the screen. Version Control, a live case study in accountability. She froze. David looked confused. She stepped toward the podium, and that's when I stood up from the second row. People started murmuring. Jenna's face went pale. I didn't say a word. Just clicked to the second slide and watched the commits begin. I had 27 slides, but I only needed 6. Slide 1 was just the title. Version Control, A live case study in accountability. Slide 2 opened with the timeline. 3 nights. 7 commits. 2 user accounts. 1 network. Same cabin. I clicked again. Slide 3 showed the repo. Not the original, but my mirrored clone. Everything they pushed over those nights, now archived in a public backup. I scrubbed out nothing. The naming was theirs. The structure, theirs. All I did was highlight what was already there. Each file path had its own story. UX redesign _draft d.jsx. Quickfix _jnotes.md. D _final touch.css. The file names weren't damning by themselves, but the timestamps were. Friday night, 10:47 p.m. Saturday, 12:21 a.m. Sunday, 2:14 a.m. Jenna's laptop wasn't synced to her work server. It was connected to the private Wi-Fi of a cabin booked under David's name. The logs confirmed it. Slide 4 zoomed in on the location metadata, and that's where people started whispering. I stood still at the front of the room, one hand on the clicker, the other in my pocket. Jenna didn't move. David had shifted back into the crowd. He was standing with his arms crossed, brow furrowed like he was reviewing code that just failed to compile. Slide 5 wasn't technical. It was a collage. I took all their shared commits and overlaid the timestamps with security footage from the resort, from a cabin camera I installed 2 years ago on our last tech couple getaway. It was motion-activated, cloud-synced, and Jenna never remembered to disconnect it. Saturday, 11:37 p.m. They're both on the porch, holding wine. Sunday, 2:03 a.m. The lights flicker on inside. 2:07 a.m. Shadows move across the blinds. Slide 6 was a simple message. The problem with integration is, sometimes you lose version history. People didn't clap. People didn't ask questions. People stared. Jenna's face was frozen. Not in shock. Not in guilt. Something worse. She looked like someone trying to assess how much damage control she could still do. The MC finally stepped in, fumbling through his words. Looks like that was not the keynote we had scheduled. We're going to take a quick break and, resume with the final speaker in 10. I walked off stage. Jenna didn't follow. I didn't leave the resort right away. I grabbed a coffee from the kiosk and stood on the deck looking over the lake. 10 minutes later, she found me. What the hell was that? She asked. Voice sharp. Controlled. Like we were in a stand-up after a sprint demo. You tell me, I said. You left a lot of breadcrumbs. That was private. No, that was professional. And personal. You gave a talk on transparency last week, Jenna. I just added a real-world example. You think this is funny? No. I think it's overdue. David didn't show. Maybe he packed up and left already. Maybe he was waiting for her back in the cabin. I didn't care. She reached for her phone. I knew she was texting someone. You're going to regret this, she said. I already did. I replied, turning toward the parking lot. That's why I stopped. I drove 6 hours back home that afternoon. I didn't call her. I didn't answer when she finally tried. Instead, I sent a group email to her leadership team Monday morning. No explanation. Just a link to the public repo titled Echo J _sandbox _v2. Inside it was a single PDF. A transcript of her and David's Slack messages I pulled from her desktop sync. The file name? Final _integration _complete, smiley face. The thing about publishing dirt in a professional repo is people notice. Not just the ones you expect. By Tuesday, Jenna's company had locked her out of the admin portal. They sent a boilerplate statement to their clients. Internal matter, temporary disruption, transition plan in place. Which really meant they were trying to figure out how to distance themselves from the mess without getting legal mud on their shoes. That was just the beginning. Jenna wasn't just some engineer. She ran the company. Founder. CEO. Face of the brand. The kind of woman that ended up on speaker panels and in startup incubator press releases. The narrative was tight. Woman in tech. Self-made. Built it from scratch. But now there were DMs, screenshots, timestamps, logs. All the commits from the retreat repo were real. Her words. Her machine. Her location. People on Twitter started picking through it, frame by frame. Dissecting the downfall, one thread said. Another just posted side-by-side headshots of Jenna and David with a caption, co-opting and coupling, the new startup synergy. It went viral in hours. David didn't get spared either. His startup was VC-backed, too. A newer app that promised secure scheduling for sensitive teams. Irony writes itself. Their Slack export, the PDF I embedded in the repo, had enough to ruin his pitch deck forever. Their shared messages weren't obscene. They were worse. It was all soft betrayals. You bring out the part of me I forgot how to be. I hate that I still miss you when I'm around him. He doesn't notice. It's almost sad. Our cabin, just like college. No interruptions this time. They even had a running joke about me. They'd call me QA Todd. Because, according to Jenna, I always test the edge cases, even in real life. Yeah, funny. By Friday, my inbox was full of media requests. People assumed I was trying to break a story. I wasn't. I didn't even care about the virality. I just wanted my time back. My years. My patience. My forgiveness. And I wanted to watch her squirm for once. She showed up at the house that night. I knew she would. She didn't call ahead, probably assumed I'd ignore it. She just appeared, standing in the doorway in her gray hoodie and ripped jeans, like she was about to apologize for forgetting to take out the trash. "Can we talk?" she asked, quiet. "Sure. Just not here." She blinked. "What? You don't live here anymore," I said. "Check your email." She pulled out her phone. Her thumb hovered before she opened it. One unread message. Subject line, change of access. It was a formal notice. I'd already filed the separation paperwork, changed the locks, removed her from the mortgage login, killed her cloud access. The digital divorce was already in motion. "You're really doing this?" I nodded. "You embarrassed me in front of the entire industry." "I didn't leak the footage," I said. "I just hosted it." She stepped forward, and I stepped back. "Jenna," I said, "the reason you're standing here isn't because I caught you. It's because I made sure everyone else did." She was quiet for a while. Then she said, "You never really loved me." "No," I said. "I just didn't weaponize it." I closed the door. 2 hours later, David tried to call me. I let it go to voicemail. I listened once. He said, "I get it. You got us. But don't ruin her forever over this. She's not a monster." I didn't respond, but I archived the voicemail, uploaded it to a folder titled backups_legacy_partners. I'm sure he'd appreciate the structure. The next day, Jenna's company issued a final statement. She had voluntarily stepped down to pursue personal growth, which was just sanitized startup speak for. We asked her to walk the plank before we pushed her. And just like that, she was gone. The woman who used to fill our living room with mock pitches and investor decks was now just a LinkedIn profile in passive mode. By Sunday, I was finally alone. No texts, no new messages, no fake apologies, just quiet. I sat at my desk and opened Visual Studio. Not for work, not for revenge, just to build something that had nothing to do with her. I started coding again, something simple. A project that didn't need to scale. No users, no roadmap, just me and a terminal. Somewhere in the distance, the heater clicked on. I let it run. For the first time in 2 years, I wasn't worried about which device she'd left logged in. It didn't take long for the silence to get interrupted. 3 weeks after the retreat fallout, I got a call from a number with a San Francisco area code. I let it ring out. Then another, and another. Different numbers, different cities. They all had the same voicemail request. "Hey Todd, just wondering if you'd be open to consulting on our security audit. We saw what you did at the retreat. Ball's a move. We need that kind of precision." I never offered consulting. Not publicly. But apparently, the way I dismantled Jenna's facade had turned me into some kind of folk hero in the tech circle. The guy who exposed the hypocrisy behind the keynote curtain. They thought I was brilliant. I wasn't. I was just fed up. Still, I started answering the calls. A week later, I had 5 clients. They weren't just randoms either. Startups, mid-level platforms, even a university tech lab. Every one of them wanted the same thing. Someone who could quietly trace data paths, identify manipulation points, and clean up messy backends, technical and personal. Turns out, betrayal was common in startups, just not always this public. I took the jobs. I built my own server. I created a pipeline that filtered out inbound logs from client systems, highlighted suspicious behavior, and timestamped anomalies. I called it Ghost Branch. It wasn't fancy, but it worked. For the first time in years, I wasn't working under someone else's brand. I didn't have to ask for permission. No quarterly vision. Just results. Quiet ones. And then Jenna resurfaced. She emailed from a new domain, jenna.studio. It was minimal, some kind of solo consultancy, offering startup narrative design. Buzzword garbage. She didn't apologize. Just wrote, "We built things once. Thought you'd want to know I'm starting over. No hard feelings. Let's not make each other into enemies. I stared at the message for 20 minutes, then deleted it. But 2 days later, I got another ping. Not from her. From someone in her orbit. A guy named Kevin, one of the investors she used to pitch. He wanted to meet for coffee. I agreed. We met at a corner cafe near Midtown, far enough from the old tech corridor to avoid recognition. He was early 50s, graying, designer jacket over a Henley shirt. The kind of guy who made his first million before Jenna ever built her first MVP. I'm not here to ask you for tech help, he said. Then why? I want to know what she said to you. What she promised. I didn't answer. He leaned back. I funded her last startup, he said. Low 6 figures. She tanked it within a month. Said the market turned on her. But I think she rerouted some of the funds to her new venture. Quietly. I didn't flinch. He continued. I didn't care, honestly. I write checks all the time that don't come back. But then I saw the retreat footage. Heard your name. Still, I didn't speak. He put down his coffee. You ever want to burn her reputation for good? I'll help you. I've got logs. Wire transfers. Timelines. Just say the word. It was tempting, but I shook my head. I already did my part. He smiled, but not in a friendly way. You sure, he said. Because she's building again. Same lies. Same charm. She'll use your name next. My ex was so smart he caught me. It becomes part of her founder story. That stuck with me. That night, I reinstalled the backup image of Jenna's old drive. I'd cloned it before the split, just in case. Not out of obsession, just documentation. Good engineers archive. I ran a fresh scan using Ghost Branch. Sure enough, I found something new. A set of emails, time-stamped weeks before the retreat. She and David were planning the entire accidental panel pairing. They scripted a fake meet-cute during the closing keynote. Even had a draft press release ready. Exes and tech reunite to disrupt the mentor space. It was theater. All of it. She never blocked him. Never hesitated. She'd been building the betrayal like a pitch deck. Worse, I found emails to Kevin too. She'd promised him early equity in her next project if he kept quiet about the missing funds. I copied everything, encrypted it, and uploaded it to a private node on the Interlink archive, a dark web wiki used by whistleblowers and security ops. No identifiers, no fingerprints, just the facts. I didn't share it with Kevin. Didn't need to. If Jenna ever tried to play me into her narrative again, someone would find it. Someone always does. 2 weeks passed. I didn't hear from her again. But David finally cracked. He sent me a message, a simple DM from a throwaway account. Just said, I'm out. She broke me. I didn't reply. He deserved worse. But in a way, I'd already given him that. Public silence is the loudest verdict. 6 months. That's how long it took before Jenna's name popped up in my inbox again. This time, through a press release forwarded by a former client. Storyform launches. AI-powered founders redefining startup mentorship. And there it was. Jenna, smiling under soft studio lighting, standing next to David. They were labeled co-founders. Again, clean slate. New logo. New domain. Same trick. Only now, there was something worse. They had a tagline. Your story deserves a better build. I almost laughed. A year ago, that would have gutted me. The branding was cleaner than anything she'd ever come up with before. Sleek. Soft language with a hard tech spine. They were going for a funding round. The article mentioned seed capital already secured, mid-6 figures. No investors listed. No cap table. Just quotes. But the kicker? She used my name. After learning so much from my ex-husband, one of the most ethical engineers I've worked with, I knew we needed to start fresh. That retreat forced me to grow. We've both evolved. That was it. She folded me into her redemption arc, made me the reason she found herself. Left out the lies, the hoodie, the fake agenda, the messages. No mention of the footage I projected across a 10-foot screen during her closing keynote. That part conveniently disappeared. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I stood up. There's a thing in programming called a merge conflict, when two versions of the same file try to exist together and the system can't reconcile them. The code breaks. One version has to win. Jenna had written her version. Time to submit mine. I went to the Interlink node where I had stored everything. The clone drive, the Ghost Branch logs, the email strings, the cache trail. I encrypted a fresh package and added an index page. I embedded the footage from the keynote. Added the original agenda with timestamps. Her name on the panel. David's name in the metadata. Then I bought a domain. buildyourstory.dev. I uploaded everything there. No commentary. No spin. Just the receipts. I linked it on one place only. The public comment thread of her launch announcement on LinkedIn. No insults. No rage. Just the link and a sentence. Version history available here. That was it. It took less than 4 hours to go viral. The comments piled up. Investors started asking questions. A minor tech blog picked it up. Then another. People started dissecting her emails, highlighting phrases, running analyses on the metadata from her supposed authentic panel experience. And then the real story broke. Kevin, the investor who'd offered to help, posted his own piece. Turns out, he'd been holding on to those wire transfers. He'd finally had enough. He attached them to a Medium post titled, "Why I No Longer Invest in Redemption Stories." Within 2 days, Storyform's site went down. Their Twitter account was deleted. The Contact Us page redirected to a 404. David sent me a voicemail I never listened to. Just the transcribed notification. I didn't know she still had those emails. I thought we were starting clean. Jenna never responded publicly, but I know she saw it. Her sister texted me, the one who stayed in touch even after the split. Just a simple line. She said you broke her story. Good. She wrote the wrong version. I just pressed undo. In the weeks after, traffic to my site tripled. I didn't even promote it. People found Ghost Branch organically. They liked that it wasn't flashy. Just accurate. Clean. No spin. A startup founder from Sweden reached out. Wanted help designing his compliance protocol. A cybersecurity firm asked me to speak at a closed conference. Someone even suggested I turn the keynote footage into a training seminar. I passed. The goal was never attention. It was correction. I'm not the hero. I just documented what happened and refused to let it be rewritten. Now, when I walk into rooms, I don't have to explain who I am. They already know. Not because of Jenna. Because of truth. Truth doesn't care how pretty your version looks. It doesn't care what filters you run it through, or how well you practice your speech. It just waits. Eventually, it gets deployed, just like code. And when it runs, the system resets. Jenna can keep trying to push her updates. But me? I revoked her access. Version control, after all, was always my job. Subscribe to the channel